Hi, I'm Gabe.
And I'm Kat.
And we're the Ghouls Next Door. Talk about that spooky stuff.
All day, every day.
Always.
Here at the Ghouls Lair.
Yeah, here at the spooky lair. It is a new month. We're doing new things.
Yeah. We did one thing 1 month, as we do.
Yeah, sometimes we do the same thing 2 months.
Yeah, this time it's new.
Yeah.
What's up?
It's not really a series.
Gabe's birthday.
Yeah, that happened this month. Yeah, I don't think we're doing a series. We're just kind of like doing a thing, we feel like.
Yeah, we're like, you know what? We've talked about this in a sense, but we didn't really cover all of it.
We didn't do this.
We want to come back.
Yeah.
You know what? I want to talk to those people who are like, are you ever going to run out of stuff to talk about? And this is no, we're not.
No.
We can always, you can look at things one way and then look at them a whole different way. You flip it over.
Yeah. We can revisit stuff, 1. 2, we already have like most of next year planned out.
Yeah.
Like legit. And most of it is new stuff.
Yeah.
So
it's like, I've always wanted to talk about that. Look, we can do that. That's crazy.
We have a
platform. We're forever.
We are forever.
Forever.
Forever. Today we're actually talking about demonology.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, demonologists.
Yeah.
And also not demonologists.
Yes. Apparently, according to this one article I read, demonology is one of the most misused terms in English.
Ah.
Which I don't know if that's true or not, but this guy had a lot of opinions about it.
I think people didn't get it. Like, actually, I had a shout out to Jeff because I was talking to him about this and we were like geeking out about the topic because I felt very strongly about some things you guys will hear. And so he was like, well, what is demonology and how is this different from like an exorcism? Or he was like, how is this different from like supernatural like investigators, like people who are like, I'm a paranormal investigator, I just come up here and I talk to ghosts, versus someone who conducts seances, versus someone who's profiting off of people's illnesses, which is to say most of the people that I just mentioned. So we're going to be talking about specifically demonology today. And this month we're going to be diving into some other topics as well, because I think it's important to talk about the differences between all of those things.
Yeah.
But today is specifically dedicated to the study of demons, which would be demonology. That's what words are. That's what that means.
We're keeping it so fresh and so clean for you.
Okay. I don't know why that's what we're
doing a lot of wordplay.
I don't know.
What's up? My name's Kat.
And we will be, or at least I will be, diving a lot into the more famous, I guess they self-designated demonologists. Yes, that's why it's self-designated. Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are the more famous demonologists that people think of, but
they technically
incorrect,
but they aren't though.
Yeah, so we're gonna dispel that, but we're also gonna talk about what their deal was, but also we're gonna talk about what demonology's deal is and why Gabe gets really mad about it.
Cool.
Facts. Yeah, facts. We tell you facts. All the facts. Yeah, facts. Still facts. About that spooky stuff. Yeah, spooky stuff.
Kat, why don't you tell us what is demonology? Tell me about it.
Yeah. So the definition of demonology is the study of the history of demons and the belief in the demonic.
Gotcha.
So it's not like, hey, I believe in demons, or hey, this is a religion. It's literally just the objective study.
Yes.
Of the history of the fact that people have believed in demons before.
Yes.
And what does that look like in a religious sense or culturally or linguistically, or it's very educational.
Yes.
It's
an ology.
Yes, it's an ology.
Yes. Well,
it's not an ist. It's an ology.
Yeah, but to argue with that, there's also Scientology. So ologies aren't exempt from ridiculousness.
That's fair. Yes. I mean, it's an ist, it's an ology.
Yeah.
We got titles. I don't know.
Yes.
But yeah, I read this. This guy had sources. Yeah. I'm assuming maybe incorrectly, I'm hoping not, because I really liked what he had to say.
Yeah.
That he did like his
diligence.
research. And he claims himself to be a demonologist in that he studies
Demons. Or
just like the history.
of
Like he
them.
does it from a really academic sense.
Yeah.
And then it's not so much like he thinks demons are real.
Yeah.
And actually he argues that like you shouldn't state that for the world. Like
That
you
demons are
can
real?
believe that, go ahead.
Yeah.
But that actually like conflicts.
There are no proofs.
You can't study yourself.
Yeah.
You're like, if you believe in demons, you are a part of the work of study
Yeah.
that you would be researching. So this guy's name is, I love his name, Stanley Stepanek. It's Stanley Stepanek. I just really like his name. I just think it's really fun. And he wrote this very long article called Demonology, a study of what is not by Skeptical Inquirer.
Nice.
So this dude has some real stuff to say.
Yeah.
He was like calling people out. And I was like, I am here for it. Keep going. You got smart words. So he basically calls out people like the Warrens and other demon hunters or like ghost hunters who call themselves demonologists. And he explained it in a really fun way. So he argues strongly that demonology is an intense field of study like any other academic field of study.
Mm-hmm.
And like that you have to go to school for this. Like you gotta go learn.
You gotta get a degree
things from books. You gotta go you gotta pay money.
Yeah.
Like you have to get a degree in demonology.
You have to
and like,
invest in that.
yeah, it's not just something you walk in. His example is great. You don't just like walk into a room and you're like, I'm a chemist,
Yeah.
without having any background in the study of chemistry.
Listen, I really like chemicals. One time I saw a chemical and I thought, yeah, I do that now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I really like mixing liquids together in bottles.
Like, you're just
I may
moving
be a
water from one
chemist.
cup to the other cup,
I'm
sir.
a chemist now. You don't just do that. If you don't have any educational background in a study, you don't just stroll up one day like, oh, hi, my name's Kat Cushion, and I am a chemist. And it's like, I don't know anything about chemicals. I was at science,
Yeah.
but, I don't know.
Well,
I'm not going to claim to be an expert on something that I have no background in.
Yeah, you can be an artist and then name yourself chemist, but with a K. And now
I could do that.
Now what?
Wow. Oh, look at me being a chemist. But he basically argues, like, if anyone did that, they'd be like, that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
What do you mean? You are not a chemist.
Yeah.
But people don't do that with demonologists because it's like this kind of like taboo field of study where it's like, they feel like it's generalized in with these like popular versions of what it could be. They're just
Yeah.
like, oh, it's on television. I believe that.
Yeah.
This guy is saying he's going to fight the demons. So that's what demonology is. It's like, no, it's literally the study of people who believe in demons.
Yeah.
And the cultural implications of why they believe in demons.
Yeah.
So, one, you don't just walk up saying you're a chemist all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So you don't walk up and just say you're a demonologist all of a sudden if you never went to school for demonology. That is his first argument, which I am
Gotcha.
here for.
Yes.
Two, if you're studying a topic academically, specifically the history of demonic belief, wouldn't it kind of be a conflict of interest if you were like, I think demons exist? I'm going to go out and fight demons.
Yeah.
Like that, you're studying the very thing that you are. Mm-hmm. So that's like a conflict of interest. That's like, honestly, you're probably very biased in your views and the information you're looking for. You're looking for what you want to see and not actual facts.
Yeah. It's like being an anthropologist and like just being a part of that culture now. Like you're like, I'm going to impact it. And it's like, no, you're just supposed to be watching and telling us about it.
Yeah, it's just like, can you look at this objectively and like just report on
Like
it?
science.
Yeah, like science.
Like if you're studying animals, like you're supposed to just hide and be in the woods and they shouldn't know that you're there.
Yeah, otherwise it's not a true...
Study, yeah.
Yeah. So same applies
Yeah.
to demonology.
Gotcha.
You're not supposed to be out there being like, I'm gonna fight these demons.
Yeah. I'm going to rid the world of demons and then I will not have a job.
Yeah, it's like what you're doing. It's dumb. It's
Yes.
straight dumb.
It's
dumb.
Okay.
So he has this really great quote, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but essentially, like, if you're going to go be a demonologist,
Yes.
cool. Go do that.
Yes.
But you got to go through the proper channels. And if you're approaching a subject, basically, like if you think something indicates that demons exist,
Yeah.
that you're trying to study that. You're looking at all of the factors. You're looking at like the linguistic variations. You're looking at like the anthropological side. You're like seeing what culturally has already existed surrounding this idea of whatever this demon you think is manifested, essentially. So you're researching all of these things and you're using science. So like all like sociology, disease theory, all of that stuff, essentially.
The hypothesis.
Yeah. Like the intent is never to cure people of what is suspected to be a myth.
Yeah.
Like the whole idea is you're studying like people's belief in it. You're not supposed to believe it yourself. And then you're also not supposed to try to use demonology, as he says, as a system for a cure. Because those who believe in the existence of such creatures, which in itself is a serious disregard for knowledge and abuse of human emotion. So it's really calling out like Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are out here saying, I'm going to help you, when really they're manipulating people who have medical illnesses or mental illnesses or like life situations that are really overwhelming and stressful. And you are just giving them a cop out and torturing them more.
Yeah.
Because like demons aren't fun. Like we saw these films. It's not like a fun time. No one wants to be possessed.
Nope.
And they're probably not possessed.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah. So it's just basically like really calling them out and then just saying that it's just like people just say they're demonologists or they throw the term like demonology at things that just really aren't what it's about. So now that we're done that little rant, let's talk about Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Second rant.
Who argue the exact opposite.
Yes.
In their world that they live. Or lived?
Lived.
That's all. Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah. So Ed Warren is a demonologist, he says.
Yep.
And Lorraine Warren is, as she says, a trance medium.
Yeah. Which I do want to say is like, there was a long period of time where she did not believe Ed when he talked about spooky things. And then all of a sudden, she's a medium now.
She's like, oh, maybe we can make some money.
Maybe I can also participate. What could my role be? Maybe I see them. And that's it. That's what it was.
Yep. So, unlike the other media we've covered in terms of like exorcisms or like ghosts or whatever, like we haven't really talked. Like we talked about the Warrens like briefly, but we didn't really get into their essence.
Nope. But we will.
Yeah. So essentially, they argue the exact opposite of the gentleman I said before. They're like, yo, demons, though.
Yeah, demons are real. We are the only army.
We have to fight them. The only way we fight them is by facing them and admitting that they're real.
Yep.
And like really just acting
and
as
writing
like
books about it.
And like acting as like a religious like an entity. Like you're going around preaching the work of God, and that they're like very much like demons are coming for you.
Yeah.
The demonic world is real. It's coming for you. You better let us come help you. Otherwise, demons.
Yeah.
You're just with them.
You got a bad case of demons.
You got demons in your house. You got demons in your yard. You need to fix your demon problem.
We're helping you.
We're helping. Demons in your pants, we're helping you. That's what you just said. I wanted to make sure that...
that's kind of what their motto is. And I'm just like, I'm putting it into terms we can all relate to.
I wanted to give you credit for your funny that I talked over briefly. So
Thank you.
Yeah. So they're just like, the devil exists. That's their whole spiel.
Yeah.
And we got to fight it. So the way that they go about fighting it is the problematic part.
Yep.
And their origin story is actually really interesting. Specifically, how they both fell into this work together as a unit.
Yes.
So Ed grew up in a supposedly haunted house in Connecticut, but not the one you're thinking, like the film we watched. But you're correct and associated them with the house.
Yeah.
But Ed said his house, this is a quote, my father, who was a police officer at the time, would often say, Ed, there's a logical reason for everything that happens in this house. We never came up with that logical reason.
Therefore, there isn't a
Demons.
logical reason.
It's just demons.
Because my dad wasn't smart enough
Logic?
to reason the weird house movements.
Demons.
Equals demons.
Yeah.
Demons in your pants. What are you gonna do?
What are you going to do?
you,
Ed knew.
you call Ed.
You got to call Ed. He knows what to do. So, he goes on to say, my family would all go to bed, and just around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, many times I would hear the closet door begin to open up. At first, I'd look into that closet and see only shapeless darkness, and then slowly I'd start to see a light beginning to form, and it would morph into like a ball shape, sort of like a basketball, and then I begin to see a face in that ball. This is called a ghost globule. Globule.
Which is funny that he was like, I stared really hard into darkness and then I saw a face. It was definitely real and not my imagination. And then he named it.
Yeah, a
Globule.
globule. So in that globule was a face of an old woman, and she was not looking at all pleasant. Mm-hmm. The globule, I can't give you the glob would then come out into my bedroom and then accompanied by an audible footsteps and heavy breathing. The room would then become icy cold, an unnatural cold, a psychic cold.
Oh, put more words in there.
And I'm saying to myself, Ed, there's a logical reason for everything.
Just like Papa
But by
said.
that time, I was out of bed and right between my mother and father in
And my
their bed.
logical father. What? So that's from their website,
Yeah.
and that's like them. Like that's literally just Ed's words.
Being like, oh, this is my facts. This is my truth.
Yeah, I didn't have an overactive imagination as a child.
Can I talk about the fact that literally a week ago, I looked into the darkness of my bedroom and it looked like there was a tall man standing and he had his hand out to like snatch me. Then I turned the lights on and it was my towels.
Yep. Or so you just put a bunch of clothes on the chair.
I do put a lot of clothes on the chair, and they look like a people. It's like a whole time. So I'm just saying, I'm not debunking your theory, Ed, but I just did at the same time.
It's a globule.
No, because darkness creates, like, you fill in the blank space.
Oh, yes.
There's so much science backing that up that your mind will fill in the blank space as a way to try to understand your surroundings.
It was a haunting. You just don't get it.
It was a globule.
It was a globule.
Oh my God, I said it. So Ed met Lorraine when they were both 16. He was working at a theater and she was a regular attending with her mother.
He was a demonologist, boy. She said, see some demons later, boy.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I like it.
You're welcome.
Thanks. So she was attending with her mother and he asked her on a date and the rest is history.
Yep.
Cute.
That is cute.
So, yeah, after a stint in the Navy, Ed became a painter and then would sell those paintings to make money.
Yeah.
But then they would also investigate mysteries. And as you said, like Lorraine at first was not about this whole ghost thing. She's like, I don't believe you.
No.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
There's no such thing.
Yes.
Which is very different from the movie we watched.
Yeah.
Conjuring
No,
3.
there's a lot of fun in that movie.
Yep. But what was interesting is that essentially they would go to the houses and I would just sit out front and be like, I'm going to draw all the ghosts in this house with my paintbrush.
Yeah.
And then Lorraine would walk up and be like, look, my husband drew this really weird picture of your house, but with lots of ghosts. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, because these are people who already were like, because there's rumors going around that this place is haunted. So then he just sits outside with his paintbrush for like a whole day. And these people are like, why is this random man outside like painting our house? And then his wife shows up and is like, look, your house is haunted. Look at all the things he sees. Let's talk about it. And then of course they'd be like, come on in. We are traumatized.
Gabe, tell us some stuff.
Yeah. So, so pretty much they, I like to call this segment, You Debunked.
I like it.
That's what I'm about to do. So what I think is funny about Ed and Lorraine Warren is when we kind of stumbled into this topic and then I was like, wait a second, we have covered them quite a lot, right? Like we talked about the haunting in Connecticut Connecticut and Amityville Horror in our Haunted Houses episode.
Yeah.
And we talked about like already the debunking of Amityville Horror in that episode. We've talked about them when we talked about Annabelle in our Dolls episode.
Yep.
And it's just, and we talk about Insidious in our children episode
They're
last
all
week.
out here saying demons exist. So.
Yeah. And they are like really prolific. There's so many movies right now that are based off of their like stories and their books that like James Wan is just making money off of right now.
Yeah.
But I think it's really it's a ride, to say the least, is looking through at what the supposed stories are. And then when you read like people's reviews or the fact that they've been sued a few times, or that like later people who were involved would come out and be like, no, this was not true. Like we made that up for this reason and that reason. And it's very clear that they were just really getting off on the attention.
Yeah.
And like writing these stories about that. But so we, when we had previously talked about the Amityville horror case, so that was like this really odd veiled attempt at exonerating Ron DeFeo, who murdered his whole family. And when if you want to check that episode out, go take a look. I think it's like episode 14 or something. But take a listen to it. And it is super fun. We do some cool little special effects in there. We got a little goofy.
Is that when Susan comes out?
Yeah, that's when Susan's
that's
there.
a fun one, man.
It is super fun. But if you want to hear about like what actually happened at the Amityville Horror House, and what I think is funny, when I was talking to our friend Jeff, who has been a guest on our show before, and I was telling him about it, and I was like, they were saying that this place was haunted, and that's what caused Ron to kill his family.
Yeah.
And Jeff was like, wait a second. So you're saying it's not that Ron killed his whole family and now it's haunted. It's before that. Like,
yeah.
And it was like, yep, that's what they were trying to say. And it was literally like, the story is that the people who live there, the Letzes, and their friend or lawyer or something got super drunk on a lot of wine and then crafted this whole story. And then we're like, you know what? Let's run with it. And then of course Ed and Lorraine are like, we're right up here with you.
Yeah.
And the problem is like, Ron DeFeo was just an awful person who murdered a lot of very innocent people because he was involved in a lot of sketchy things. Yeah. And was just like, and he wanted an out, and it happened to be that the Lutzes were almost giving him that because they were like, it was like another like the devil made me do it case. Yeah. Which is something that Ed and Lorraine are incredibly like involved with. The devil made me do it is like a catchphrase that they could put on any one of their clients. Yeah. And so, and one of the more famous ones, which I actually think was really interesting because we never see that because it's not as, I guess, like entertaining, I guess. So there's the famous trial of Arnie Cheyenne Johnson, who during a time was engaged to a woman whose younger brother, who was about like 10, I think, had been suffering from what everyone thought was that he was possessed. Okay. So Ed and Lorraine show up. They see this little boy. They think he's possessed. Lorraine said, a quote from Lorraine is that she knew there were 43 demons in the boy. She knew that. Okay. So then they get the archdiocese of that area to perform an exorcism. They do a few of those, and voila, the boy's fine now. The boy is free of the 43-something demons that were hanging out inside of him. And everything's hunky-dory, except turns out that some of the demons didn't leave. Instead, they hopped on over to Arnie and possessed him, but conveniently didn't do anything until he got into a scuffle with his landlord and then ended up stabbing him a bunch. But it wasn't him. Nope. It was the demons from his fiance's brother. Yeah. Who was a child.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Following for it here.
Yes. So it's kind of like, it's such a wild ride that they were just like, yeah. And they were actually asked to come on trial to like speak on his behalf. And it was like one of those, like, instead of like pleading insanity, it was pleading possession, which is absurd, right? Later, actually, in 2007, Carl Glatzel, who is the young boy David's older brother, attempted to sue them because he said that they were manipulated by the Warrens and that they concocted his quote is, they concocted a phony story about demons in an attempt to get rich and famous at their expense. None more so than little David, whose mental illness he feels was exploited for monetary gain. Yeah. Yes. So super cool. They're super cool guys, right? We know about Haunting in Connecticut, right?
Yeah.
We talk about that in our episode of Haunted Houses. What I think is really important about that and what you can take from it is that the guy who wrote the book with them like was interviewing that family. And he was like, wait a second. He went to Ed and he was like, listen, I've interviewed all the Snedekers and none of their stories are matching up. Like they are all over the place. They all have so many different things that are happening with them, like just in real life. Like some of them have alcohol and drug problems. The one kid had cancer. Like there's all this stuff that's happening. And he's like, none of these stories are matching up. And Ed said to him, oh, they're crazy. You've got some of the story, just use what works and make the rest up. Just make it up and make it scary. Is what he said to him. And then they did. And now we have a Haunting in Connecticut, like kickoff film that like brought us to like, and I will say this, the film, which is one of my favorite, like haunted houses films, Lorraine actually hates it and has spoken out against it because one, it doesn't involve them. And two, she says it mocks like all the hard work that they put into that.
All the
story.
lying that they put
all
into
the lying to make it even bigger
for those
lie.
lies.
Yeah. One thing about Annabelle is that she's actually a creepy Raggedy Ann doll. She's not like that
Which
creepy
messes
doll.
me up because I was like, I had a Raggedy Ann. If you put a Raggedy Ann in the Annabelle movie, I would have been more scared because I'd be like, that's the doll I have in my house. That doll's haunted?
Yeah,
is
I
that
had
what
a
you're
bunch of
telling
her.
me?
Yeah.
That my doll that I actually own is haunted?
Yeah.
Not this weird
doll that's not existent.
Yeah. It would have been so much scarier if it was Raggedy Ann, but they probably would have had to like buy the rights.
Yeah.
To Raggedy Ann.
Yes. We also watched recently Conjuring 2, recently as in last night, which is about the Enfield possession of actually two young girls. So in the film where we really only follow one, but it was two. The thing about that is that a lot of those occurrences were debunked as they were happening. Like them being levitated. You can look at the pictures online. It's very clear a girl just jumping off of her bed.
Yeah.
One girl was just like honestly practicing throwing her voice like a ventriloquist. So she would just do that. Like they just were doing it for attention, really.
Yeah.
And Lorraine just jumped right into that. And I think it's really funny about Conjuring 2 is how hard that they try to like kind of offensively like combat anyone who's trying to debunk the story because they put the debunkers in there and then still make Ed and Lorraine the heroes being like, but we believe and that's what's important. And demons are worse than this kid being really stressed out and bullied at school and her mom is like on welfare and doesn't like her husband isn't around and she has to take care of all these kids and clearly there's distress in this family. That's not what's important. It's demonic possession.
Yeah, there's so many demons all up in this house is what they're saying.
Yeah. Instead of like, let's talk about the actual social problems that we have in this family, which is what they love to do. But the girls were
lie
just
and make it scary. That's what he just said.
Yeah, he said it. One of my favorites that I stumbled upon when I was researching is their famous werewolf demon case.
What?
Yes, you
Tell me
did
about
hear
it,
that
please.
correctly.
Werewolf
demon
case.
So I stumbled upon someone's review of a blog post by Ridoban Mukherjee. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong, at Unexplained Mysteries. And he talks extensively about the werewolf demon case. But what I think is really, really fun is his, like, essentially he just like encompasses this entire case, which was essentially a man who, at one point got really angry when he was younger and he said that he like blacked out and blamed it on something else. Was fine for a significant amount of years to the point where he just got married and had kids and just lived his life. And then one day got angry again and then committed some crimes and was like, oh, it was a werewolf demon. So, so the guy who wrote this blog has this to say about the Warrens. The Warrens haven't been able to produce any photos or material evidences, but the very presence of the famous demonologist couple, a paranormal collector John Zaffis, and famous exorcist Bishop McKenna greatly increases the credibility. Moreover, most resources touting the truthfulness of this case are blogs that love to gush on the Warrens. There are no articles devoted to debunking this one because it really debunks itself. Man gets violent with some cops, blames a werewolf demon, has an exorcism, man is cured. And he says, but it's real because the Warrens are awesome and they don't lie. Say it with me now. The Warrens tell the truth. This I know. For the Warrens told me so.
Yo, that's great.
Which
That's
is
a great quote.
Right? Because that's literally what it is, right? Like, they come in, they hear about something that's, like, really unfortunate, or, like, that's the third case now where they just tried to, like, exonerate someone who was vicious and angry and was just, like, a violent man, and was like, no, it was actually demons. The third one that I found.
There's also, like, a latent trauma is,
Yeah.
like, you only explode sometimes.
Yes.
And it can be years
Yeah.
that you don't. It doesn't mean you have demons inside of you.
It just means you have anger problems.
You have unresolved anger issues. You've been piling it all on, and it exploded just now.
Yeah.
You aren't absolved from whatever you did during that time. It was not a werewolf demon.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, he would, like, growl. And he would, like, kind of get all huffy puffy.
You know what? I'm convinced. Yeah, I changed my mind.
And I think it really just encompasses it, right? Is that, like, these are absurd cases. All of them are so different and so perplexing, right? In that, like, the real only, like, legitimate, and I'm using quotation marks here, cause for even calling it, like, a demonologist case or a haunting case is the existence of Ed and Lorraine in this environment. Like, if they didn't pick this up, it would have just been a run-of-the-mill, like, this is a family that's going through some stuff, or these some people who are going through some stuff.
Yeah.
But as soon as they step foot in there, it's like, okay, this is a haunting. There's no other explanation for it. Everything's haunted. We have to exorcise them, and they're exonerated from any bad things they did.
Yeah.
So that's what Ed and Lorraine did. We're also going to talk about the Perrin family case, but we're going to do that when we jump into the Conjuring, which is the first one, which is interesting, but was certainly, like, pumped up a little more the way that you have to in films.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
Films. Yeah, films. Yeah, films. We watch some films. Now let's talk about those films. And all that spooky stuff. And all that spooky stuff.
All right, so we watched stuff.
Yeah.
So we watched Conjuring 1 and 2.
Yes.
We actually watched a lot of things.
We watched way more than we maybe needed to.
Yes, but we were trying to figure out, like, what we were doing.
Yeah.
Like, what was the point? What was the pull? What's interesting? What do people want to hear about?
Yeah.
And it ended up being Ed and Lorraine because it's fun. So we watched Conjuring 1 and 2, and we watched a documentary called Hostage to the Devil about an actual, quote-unquote, demonologist, in that he is, like, the demonologist in the sense of, like, he works for the church.
Yeah.
Or actually, he didn't. We'll talk about that.
You know what? Honestly, I don't think he was a demonologist.
No, he's
according
just
to
an
my
exorcist.
main man, Stanley Stepanek.
Yeah.
So
Another self-proclaimed demonologist. He was just a religious man. But we'll talk about Conjuring and Conjuring 2. So Conjuring 1 is from 2013. It's directed by James Wan, who did Saw, another movie we watched, which was demonic. Pretty much any movie with Ed and Lorraine in it.
yeah.
He's done it. Or, like, Annabelle and, like, Insidious, all them. He loves it. But what Conjuring is about is paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren work to help a family terrorized by a dark presence in their farmhouse.
Yeah.
Which is their house. I don't know why it's called farmhouse. And this is the Perrin family case, which was about a husband and wife and their 5 daughters, which is a lot of daughters.
Yeah. It's many. How many daughters is too many daughters? 5.
5. They can't have any more than that. They'll lose one.
According to the cat's metaphor.
Yes. So they, the Perrin case follows these people who buy a house, and then weird stuff starts happening, and all of them had claimed that strange things were happening.
Yeah.
And it was scary for them. And so then they called in Ed and Lorraine. And actually what I think is really fun about this is that one, Ed and Lorraine did not do an exorcism, which is what they show in The Conjuring. Because I was like, that's not right. Like, why would a demon listen to them? They're not, like, they're not, like,
they're not priests.
Yeah, like, they don't have, like, that power. And the demon would know. And if it's a strong enough demon as Bathsheba, I think she would know and be like, yeah, okay. You're just a rando yelling at me. Like,
and also,
scripture.
okay, spoilers.
Yep.
But in the second one, she's just, like, pushed up against a wall and she just says it and it's done now.
Yeah, yeah.
Are we for real? Continue.
So they did not do an exorcism in The Conjuring, like in the parents' like in the actual like Perrin case. In the movie, they did.
Yeah.
Ed does an exorcism. And in the actual case of the Perrin case, the parents actually asked Ed and Lorraine to leave because their presence exacerbated the presence of the, like, whatever it was in their house.
Yeah.
Whatever spirit or demon. Like, it upset whatever it was, the house.
Yeah.
And so they had to leave. But someone, like, later in the story, it's funny. So someone who inherited the house later, one, sued the movie because of how many people started trespassing on her land, which is classic. That also happened with Amityville and Haunting in Connecticut. People always trying to be up in your house if you have a haunted one. So the lady was like, you jerks, now everyone's trespassing on my land. But she also was like, she did her own research into like the history of the land and like Bathsheba and all that. And she was like, none of this stuff is anything like what they were saying. Yeah. At all. Like in the least. And so, she was just like, no, that's not true. And I think that's interesting. But the film was pretty fun. The film has a lot of fun things in regards to like playing up suspense.
Yeah, it was actually like genuinely kind of scary. I remember being like,
yeah.
I feel fear.
Yeah.
Even in the second one, it was like dumb. They just are really good at suspense. Like, I think the biggest thing is, like, from both of those films, you're generally afraid because of the level of just, like, waiting you have to do to see what's going to happen. And they do a very good job. Or, James Wan does a very good job, like, doing that.
In Conjuring 1, it's been a long time. So it's 2013 that Conjuring, the first one, came out. So if you forget,
it's a fun time. I remember watching it.
Yeah, like the husband is a trucker, so he's gone a lot of the time. The kids are like harassed by something. There's the one girl who's harassed the most, and she's like super traumatized by it. But there's like the voice where she's like, "Stop playing with my feet." To her sister, and then like the blanket gets pulled off of her, and she just did such a great job of just being like, there's someone in the room, and it just like you're stuck with the camera just staring at darkness, and nothing is there, but she is acting so intensely that like you start seeing stuff in there even though there's nothing in there, and that's exactly what that is. Like that's exactly what probably was happening to them, right? Yes, you saw a glob. And and then your sister freaks out too, right? Yeah. But I think they have like the clap game, so it's like hide and clap instead of hide and seek. Which is a
messed up game.
Yeah.
I am not putting a blindfold on my head for anything. I don't know if that's because I've experienced trauma and I have no trust for my surroundings. But absolutely not.
Yeah.
What? You have 2 floors. As you said, you could fall right down those steps. That is irresponsible parenting.
Here's the thing. I played like Manhunt in the dark in my house when like we would have a hurricane because I'm from Florida and like all the power would be out and we'd play. One time we played and it was like a disaster because everyone like stubbed their toe a few times. We like knocked over like things that were like glass, and it was just like, of course, your mom's like, now you're no longer allowed to play. Like, you can't play Manhunt in darkness.
The first time I touched somebody else's hands that are not my tiny child's, we're not playing whatever and clap ever again. Hide and clap. Absolutely not.
Yeah. But it has
like, my eyes will be open at all times.
Yeah. Well, it has like that a really good scene where the mom is playing and she asks for the claps, and then we're led to one of the rooms that has like the haunted wardrobe, and the door opens, so then the mom is like, ooh, I think I know where you are, and again she's blindfolded, and then we see hands come out and do the clap, and then she like turns around and everyone's like, no, and then like she goes to like look, there's no one in there, and then the little girl runs in and is like, you were so far off, you took your blindfold off and I was all the way down the other hall, and it's just like the mom is like, oh, weird.
No, you're not just like, oh, weird. You're like, what is in my closet? There's a woman in the walls. I don't understand. What do you mean? There's a little, okay, so later.
Yes.
Spoilers. They go in and they like open up the closet more and they see there's a little hole in the wall.
Yeah.
I'm no longer thinking that's ghosts. I'm saying there is a person in my walls.
Yeah.
We need to leave. It is unsafe.
Yeah, we have to call the police now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, yeah, because I know stories where that's been the case. Right?
That's like my literal biggest fear is that we find out there has been a person living in our walls this whole time.
That would be very scary.
It would be terrifying.
And also,
they could have attacked us at any time. Why are they waiting? Like, it's terrifying.
yeah. I think another thing that's classic Ed and Lorraine is having a children's toy that is evil or is a way to see evil. Because innocence generally like leads you to be able to see things that people can't see. We talked about that last week in our children's episode, right? But like we have this like weird mirror toy musical thing. You pull
The music
thing.
is very... So, I mean, we're talking a lot about how music influences a film. That is a creepy little jingle.
Yep.
A children lullaby, whatever.
It's Pop Goes the Weasel, which is usually accompanied by the Jack in the Box or something. Like, what's the most tormenting toy? Because it's like, you know, you're waiting, and it always does that thing where it'll stop, and of course it doesn't pop up yet, and then it's like, bah! And you're like, oh, you got me. I knew you were coming because that's all this toy is for, but you got me because I didn't know the exact second. But it's like a little thrill. But so she has one of those toys, and it plays the Pop Goes the Weasel song. But supposedly at the end of that song, you will be able to see her friend behind you in the reflection. And of course, every adult is like, okay, open it up. I'd be like, that's cool, hon. Go play with your imaginary friend. I'm fine. I'm not knowing what he looks like.
This all ties back to people being too curious.
Yeah.
It's like, why?
Yeah.
There's no reason.
Yeah.
You walk in the other direction of danger.
Yeah.
You walk away from danger.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, he loves using like kids of like in Insidious when we have like that one kid and he would play the songs like ding dong ding 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 ding.
Yeah.
Like the SpongeBob
It's like the
song, and he was
SpongeBob
dancing to it. Like and then in Conjuring 2, which we'll run right into now, from 2016, so 3 years later, same director. This one we have Ed and Lorraine Warren who travel to North London to help a single mother raising 4 children alone in a house plagued by a supernatural spirit. So we went from one woman whose husband is always gone and she has 5 kids in a house and is clearly stressed in a time where she has no respect. And now we're going over to London where the same thing is happening. Now she has 4 kids, no husband, and is also super stressed.
Yeah.
So this is the Enfield possession. In this one, we have like this like another like creepy toy, but it like it has another creepy song, which is the like
which is also like why this is a very inappropriate song for kids. It's like the crooked man comes kills your kids. It's the whole time. It's like, why are you happily singing this song?
And the mom's like, oh, you did it. Good job.
Crooked man, he's coming to murder you. It's such a good song for my children.
Love it. Yeah, because we have another mom who's super stressed, and she has her 4 children that she's got to take care of. She's got one who gets in trouble immediately, and super duper wants some attention, of course.
Yeah.
And then you have a little boy who has a stutter. You have just like you just have circumstances, right?
Yeah.
The one girl ends up somehow possessed by something.
The old man.
But not the old man. Slash spoilers.
Set up for Nun movie.
The Nun movie, which is strange. It is like a whole thing. I didn't know because we just saw the Conjuring 2 for the first time. And then we were like, oh, I guess this nun thing is something real intense. Because the nun in this film is pretty solid for spooks. Like, they did it. Every time that person was around, I was like, okay, this is scary. And then they would go back to the girl just saying like really weird stuff. They do a really, I would say one of the best scenes in Conjuring 2 is that she asks them to turn around so that he will talk through her. So there's like supposedly this ghost of a man who died from an aneurysm, I think, in his chair in the corner. And so she sits in the chair in the corner and she asks them to turn around and they can ask her questions and then she would do it. And so what's in focus is Ed, but behind him, everything is out of focus. But you can see her, like her silhouette, like the little color splotches that equal her. Yeah. And then when the guy starts talking through her, you can tell that face is different now, and it is a big old man face on the little girl body. And it's very frightening, and it's like really fun to use that kind of like idea. There's a lot of really silly CGI because of the crooked man.
There was some CGI times. They were having a whole blast.
Yeah, which I think is funny because the story behind Valak, who, spoiler alert, from 2016, is the nun's name. right? So that idea came from Lorraine told James Wan about an experience she had after the Amityville horror case, where she was like, I saw this black splotch creature and it was like super frightening. Like it just messed her up. And he was like, that sounds like something really hard to do in CGI and I don't want to do it. And so it was like, scratch that. And then he created the nun instead because he thought that would be spooky. And then it's like, but now you have like you over CGI'd like everything else. So why couldn't we have the splotch monster? Although I will say that the splotch monster and what is seen in, not Enfield, but one of their possession cases is actually more closely related to what we see in Insidious.
Yeah.
Like that really scary demon guy.
Yeah.
He's more present in what she's seen previously. So I think that's kind of cool. We could have saw him again. I would have been fine. He was really scary.
Yeah, he was
the
scary.
nun, not so much. Just like what they did with the nun was scary.
Yeah, they were really good with like their camera work, and like you were like, "There's no way that nun is not coming out of that picture," and they did. And they did, so
but in a way, I didn't think was gonna happen because they
Yeah.
mess with you. They were like, "Is it this time? No, she turned on the light. It's not here." But oh wait, we're gonna have a really prolonged time where she's gonna like touch the. Oh man, it was a time. If you have not seen Conjuring 2, I definitely suggest it. It is long,
but it was fun.
But it was a good time as far as like if we're gonna get into like a horror movie that's good for its kicks. But James is really good at that.
Yeah. Can we also talk for a second about the very end where it was like we had just finished watching Homeward Bound, and it was just this very inspirational like mom and daughter with their pet dog music. Like if you can envision it, just like like
after
you're all happy.
trauma.
Like it's just like, oh, it's so wonderful. Look how great Ed and Lorraine are. They're like the dads and moms I've never had. Thanks for the cross.
Yeah.
Dad that's leaving again forever.
It's just like all men I know.
Yep.
Yeah. What I think
This is so inspirational. It was goofy.
this I think what's really funny about this one is that he really, really amps up like isn't Ed and Lorraine just the best?
Yeah, aren't they a love story? Just such the coolest.
Because in the first one we have like where Lorraine had been affected by something and persists, and she's like, "You said we were brought together for a reason," which is like, well, it took a long time for you to find that reason. Anyway, they figured it out, and so she like persists. But in this one, it's like she's still kind of like weary and off because of things that are affecting her. But it's like their love, like they have like a whole part I didn't think really needed to be there where Ed is playing the guitar and he does his little Elvis impression. And I was just like, okay, like he's cute, I guess. Like what am I supposed to be doing here? Well, you took me out of the spook to just charm me for a minute. And it's like, he already does that. He's a charming guy. But it was just like, look how cute they are. And they're like the spokespeople for the fallen and the ones who are getting taken advantage of by wayward spirits and demons whose only goal is to hurt people. And it's like, okay, like, but why are you... Right. And there's also like an intense lack of like people who are more appropriate for exorcisms. One, right. Like they do mention
like the church asks them to go.
Yeah. And what I think is really interesting is like when we did our exorcism episode.
They're closer to the Pope than them.
Yeah. Yeah. When we did our exorcism episode, we talked about how there's an extensive like topic on how to get to an exorcism. Like you have to like rule out quite a lot. And they do mention that in this film. Like he's like, if they see this tape, there's no way. And it's really hard. Like we need more evidence than that, than her just speaking a different language. We have to rule out like mental illness and stuff. But then they really just like completely negate that. And then they take it upon themselves, which is like, why do we even need the church if just anyone can do it? Right. Yeah. And that's like what I think is really
yelling the Valak.
Yeah.
Go to hell now.
Yeah. And that you have enough power. Like, forget all the priests out there. They don't matter.
Yeah.
And
isn't that the whole thing? Ed and Lorraine are the best.
They are.
They're the number one best awesome. So. They're out here solving exorcism problems. Demons in your pants, they're fixing it.
Yeah. We did watch another thing.
We did. Let me say words about it. So it was Hostage to the Devil from 2016, director Marty Stalker.
I love that.
Fortunate.
It's a great documentarian's name because that's what
true.
they do. They
Yeah.
just doc you.
So it's a child possessed, an exorcist locked in combat with an ancient evil in the battle for saving a soul. Just who really is the hostage of the devil?
It's interesting in that it shows a lot of people who really love this guy. So
Yeah.
it follows Malachi something. I forget his last name. But it's this man who was a priest in a church in Rome and then came over, like left because there was like weird like conspiracies and like gossip and like drama.
Conflict.
Yeah, there was like literal just like drama. And he was like, I gotta leave because I know too much.
Yeah, and he was from Ireland
Yeah.
originally, which I thought it was interesting. He ended up in the States. So he
Yeah.
was just like, I'm going to go all these places. Now I'm going to go here.
Yeah. So
Which
he
is
came
fine.
here. And so there's a lot of people who loved him and are just like, he was a hero. And then there's like this one guy. And at first I was like, oh, cool. We have a guy who's just like out to get him because he's doing a bad job and he wants to show him out to be a fraud. But then like
You find out, yeah,
halfway through the movie, you find out
that he slept with his wife.
that
and
Malachi
that's
slept with his
That's
wife.
why he didn't like him. And I was like, oh.
Dang it. I was like,
You're very biased, sir. Do you just not like him because he slept with your wife? Or are there other reasons? And I think it's just because he slept with your wife. that
yeah,
you're
I was
upset.
like, dang. I was really.
That old man
honestly-
also is like, I'm so stoked to die. It's something he said.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa! That man just said he's super excited to die.
To be fair, it was
but he
'cause
said
he-
it in a really nice way.
It was because he wanted to see like what the truth was. Like he was
Yeah.
excited to know what was on the other side.
Get
but that still
but
equals
also,
death. He was
it
also
translated
very old.
to, I'm so excited to die.
Yeah.
Which I was like, oh my god, my heart.
Yeah, it was a time. But I was really kind of disappointed by this for a lot of reasons. So the whole film, they keep like referencing back and kind of building up suspense for his like last exorcism case, which is about a very, very young girl who's like 3 or 4 years old and is supposedly possessed by a demon, like a really old, really strong, very bad demon.
Yeah.
And we keep getting like, we'll get people talking about how great he is. We get a little story about how there's drama in the church. We get a little bit about how he slept with people's wives. We're getting all this stuff, like a mix of this, but we keep peppering back into
Like the story of the
this
little
girl
girl.
is evil, right?
And
And like
she's 4 years old.
she was, yeah. And then like, and mixed with another guy who was like, she was evil, but Malachi was really nice about it. Like she,
and the other guy's crying because he's like upset about the fact that it's a 4-year-old that's lost her innocence.
And then the other guy was like, she gave him a look.
It was the same guy.
No, it was two different guys.
It's two different guys?
Yeah.
All right, I liked the one guy who was crying a lot more than this really rude guy.
He was super rude. But there's like, he was like, here's my best friend. Anyway, he like has a thing where he kept taking things out of context. Like he would say like, and then she said this awful thing, and it would have been like, it was like, have a good day, father. And he was like, but she said it and you couldn't see her face, but her face was bad. And I was like, was it though? Or are you like really, really reading into this? Because he would hype it up where it was like, and then you cannot believe what she said or did.
It was like a super normal thing. Like she blew him a kiss.
Yeah, and he was like, she was like he called her like a whore. He said she was like a whore giving a kiss to a John. And I was like, one, that's disgusting.
And then also, who are you to say?
Yeah. And it was like, okay, maybe she's just a little girl and her parents like taught her, like, that's how you say bye. What? Bye. And so it was like, it was such a wild ride where I was like, what? And so then I was like, okay, does this little girl like come up and stab him? Like I was excited. I was like, all right, let's see. I was like, how is this little girl going to murder him? Because that's what I'm excited for because I know he's dead. And I want to know.
Oh my God, Gabe.
Well, we're
not promoting child murder on the Ghouls Next Door.
No, we're not.
Okay.
But that's what it felt like it was hyping up to. I was like,
Okay.
there's no other reason for them to be like, ooh, she's so evil. She's so evil.
There was also like no resolution to that story.
Yes.
Which was frustrating because it's like, when it ended, I was like,
Yeah.
Oh, he just died. Normal.
Yeah, like you went.
And
I think
nothing
you went,
else happened? No,
I
what
think you
happened
went
to the
upstairs,
girl?
and I was like, all right. So Kat went upstairs, and I had to tell her what was happening. So I shouted up, and I said, "Oh, Malachi fell down." he says that it's one, people were like, it's a conspiracy. The church came to him because he knew too much. And then someone else was like, the one guy who equated that young child to a sex worker was like, it was a demon. It got a hold of him and it wouldn't let him go. And then and then he was like, they interviewed the guy and he was like, I know too much or whatever. The lady like came to him when he was like right before he lost consciousness or whatever. And he was like, I know too much. Like, no, it wasn't an accident or something. And so, but he had like fallen, and then Kat was like on her way downstairs. I was like, oh, he died. He's dead now. And that's it. There's really no explanation. But it was literally like, was it the church or a demon? Or maybe it's because he was very old and he lost his balance.
I feel like if he says, because I knew too much, that someone sent somebody.
But I think he was saying, like I think he was setting it up for being a demon thing. Because he was so involved in that case at the time. And they let it up where they were like, each time he took on a case, he would get sick.
He would lose part of himself.
Yeah. And it was like, or he's just getting old and he's like working a lot. And that might be, it's probably emotionally exhausting.
Like emotionally draining.
Yeah,
work,
like you're
it's
working
like if you're
real
dealing
hard.
with individuals who are going through like that level of stress, that you're going to take some of that with you.
Yeah, but spoilers to everyone from this 2016 documentary: the little girl did not kill him or in any way have anything to do with his death. And also, it didn't really say what happened to her. Like, no, she went away, and then later they brought her back, and she was a little more evil. But they were just like, whatever. Like, it was really unresolved what happened to that young child. And then also it was just like, did the church do it? Did a demon do it? And not once did anyone say, like, maybe it's because he was old and he fell.
Yeah.
Because he was very old.
And also it seemed like for the little girl that people were referencing that, like, it's very possible that she had, like, experienced some sort of sexual trauma.
Yeah.
And that is why she
was doing that.
Got worse as she got older. Because if no one stopped it.
Yeah. Yeah, because the one guy who was possibly going to help died.
Yeah.
So that was our real, in quotations.
You think maybe the police would?
Demonologist.
No. Okay, I guess not.
Nope. It was definitely a demon who made her blow kisses. Yeah.
Feelings. Yeah, feelings. Yeah, I said feelings. Let's talk about feelings. Okay. And all that spooky stuff. I love spooky stuff.
All right. So if you like it, it's Raggedy Ann.
It's scarier than Annabelle.
Yeah, because she's actually the real Annabelle.
Yeah.
Which was and it made a little more sense as to why, it still doesn't make any sense why these nurses had a doll and why that doll was scribbling notes to them. But whatever. Well, what's it going to be, right? But if you don't like it, it's I'm a chemist now.
Yeah.
Because you could just be whatever you want.
I'm a chemist. I'm a demonologist.
Don't let your dreams be dreams.
Yeah.
You can
Go do them.
Yeah.
Just be.
Go fight demons, and now you're a demonologist, not a demon fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I got. So for the topic of demonology.
I really loved my main man.
Yeah.
Stanley Stepanek. I hope he's not full of it. I really liked all of his words, and I think everyone should go read them. Also, unless, like, you actually believe in demons, because then you're going to feel kind of sad.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, to each their own.
Yeah.
But I just thought he was putting some real logic.
On a really scary subject.
Yeah, exactly.
Scary in that, like, so...
If it is real, oh God.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's also, like, so when we did our exorcism episode, it was really hard because I just get very upset when it's clear that there are people taking advantage of, like, vulnerable people who are already in these really sensitive spaces who clearly need help. Which is like what this episode started out to be when we were researching was just going to be about ghosts. And then we watched some like haunted stories and I got really mad because I was like, these are just excuses for people's like very human actions and mistakes. And like, instead of just owning them, we're like saying demons did it. And then that just led to, oh, that's Ed and Lorraine's entire career. Yeah. Was them being like, no, it was demons. It's not something you have to actually take care of.
Yeah.
Like, give us money and publicity.
Yeah.
And so I think with like the act, like if demonology is really just like people who are looking back into what kind of impact that is, then I'm here for it because it is impactful, right? And it has affected people generally in an incredibly negative space, for forever, right? But if it's demonology in the way that like we have Ed and Lorraine, and that we have like the Vatican, who that documentary said there was like 60 exorcisms like a month in just Rome, and it's like that's a very small place to be having that many exorcisms. What is wrong with your central location for religion that you have that many exorcisms? And I guess it's because maybe the devil feels threatened. So that demonology is where I'm like, I can't get it. It frustrates me because it does end up hurting people.
Well,
people have died.
Well, because the biggest thing is that it's a misuse of the word. So like our main man is saying that that's not what demonology is. And that's what everyone keeps saying demonology is. Yeah. And then there's people out there saying they're demonologists who aren't practicing the actual study of demonology.
It's a bizarre time.
And there's just this whole idea that there's comfort in the idea that there's something else after we go. Like it ties back to that, is that we just don't want it to be nothing. And what the cost for that is that demons exist, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes when you, like for people who have certain like mental illnesses, and if they are not getting help and they are very religious, sometimes it's much easier for them to believe like the devil is doing this to me and I'm not the one who's making these mistakes or am affected by something that's happening to me chemically. And all I need is an exorcism and everything will be better. Not I need a lifetime of like medication and taking care of myself because
and, like,
I have like an issue. Yeah,
and like working through it in a rational sense.
Yeah.
Which is a hard realm to face for like humanity as a whole sometimes, where we need to explain things. Our brain fills in the blanks. Yeah. So we try to explain things in ways we know how. That's why the whole Salem witch trials existed. Someone got pink eye. They're like, witches are here now. Yeah. So
someone slept with someone's wife.
Yeah. And it's just like we have interesting ways as humans in explaining away things that we don't yet understand.
Or we don't want to take responsibility for. Yeah, and I think with Ed and Lorraine, they gave us some good stories. Yeah. But the problem is, like, at what expense, right? Yeah. Like, we have
They're exploiting people. Yeah. It's sad. Yeah.
And it's like these people who are already vulnerable, but also not to exonerate any of the people who are involved too, because a lot of these families were in on those hoaxes and were also profiting off of them. So some of it really is just like, at some point it's like, okay, what part of this is really just like entertainment? We are making an entertainment industry, right? Versus like times when like something with an exorcism is like someone who is hurting and is vulnerable, and then we take advantage of them, right? Whereas I think a lot of what Ed and Lorraine did was walk in and like make a situation worse, but also the people who did it were not completely innocent either. Yeah. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents about that. What about the films? Just quickly.
I thought they were good. Yeah. They were fun.
I thought they were fun. Even the documentary was, like, interesting. It was not what I was expecting, and I was like, what? Why? But it was not at all what I thought it was. So I was excited to watch a documentary about a guy who did exorcisms. Yeah, but if you like what you hear, keep on listening. Give us a like and a comment on iTunes. That's where it matters. It's my birthday month. Ooh, ooh.
Gift to Gabe.
Yeah. Also, if you want to, contribute to our Patreon, that exists too somewhere, or you want to make us cool fan art, I also accept
or buy
that.
T-shirts. Be a Ghoul Scout, y'all.
Yeah. But don't get married.
Don't eat your kids.
Okay, bye. Or they get possessed. I don't know.